where they can get your book or your series of books, and how expensive and do you have? Can you buy one at a time, or can you buy the whole series?
Yes. So you can buy you can buy one at a time. Like you don't have to read them in order. I usually recommend starting with the first one, the Totally Ninja Raccoons Meet Bigfoot, because it kind of sets up the entire thing, the entire series. But then you can buy the one that it has your favorite cryptid in it. Like if you want, if you like Thunderbirds, or the third one has a Side-Hill Gouger, and if you've always wanted to read about that, you can buy my books at wellsborobookstore.com, and you can sign a signed, personalized copy. And a lot of times, a personalized book has a lot of value to a child. I actually have a story about that. There's this past Christmas, a grandmother bought a personalized copy of the first book for her grandson, and her grandson also got some other books, and he let everybody read those books, but the personalized copy, that was just for him. And he was convinced that I had written that book just for him. So that was something that was very special.
Oh yeah.
And of course you can buy my books. Like I'm a bookstore owner, so of course I love bookstores. So if you're lucky enough to have a bookstore, an independent bookstore near you, if they don't stock it, you can ask to order the Totally Ninja Raccoons, and it'll come right up at their wholesaler, and they can order it. And of course, you can order it anywhere online. You can order it at Walmart.com, or there's some sellers on eBay. There's some other stores that have it. You can buy it on Amazon, of course. I mean, I always put that last because I have a bookstore. So yeah, you can get it there, but I always say that last.
Oh yeah. Okay, and like if they order it, I take it then they go to your website, and they can just order it directly from your website?
Yep. I always keep some in stock so they can go directly to wellsborobookstore.com. It's From My Shelf Books, but we made the website easy to remember, and I have them very reasonably priced. They're comparable to other books at that age level. Like the first one is $5.99 a piece, so they're all the first 4 are $5.99, and the last couple went to $6.99 because they got a little bit longer, a little bit more involved. But like I said, the reading level about 7 to 10, which is about second to fourth grade. Now I do have some older readers that like them. I had a young man here visiting me from Texas who is a really good reader, but we had a good conversation about Bigfoot. He's interested in Bigfoot, and he loves cryptids. And he was 12 and good reading, but he read all the books. He loved them. It didn't take him as long to read because he was a good reader, but he's still a good story, so he actually enjoyed them all as well.
Have you thought about writing a book more for like a 12 to 16-year-old too? Kind of mix in your mix too to kind of get them?
Well, I am actually working on an older book for. I'm kind of spinning off the werewolf character from the second book, The Weird and Wacky Werewolf. In this book, the Weird and Wacky Werewolf turns out to be a 12-year-old boy. And so I'm writing one that's more for the middle age. Like my intent is like in the middle age. Sometimes with a book, what happens with it. But my target is kind of like the middle school, 5 to 7th grade level. And like I said, it's going to be spin-off of the werewolf. This is one I've already started. Like any writer, I start a lot of books, and then sometimes they sit there until I work on them again. But this is a werewolf. He finds out he's a werewolf, and middle school is hard. It's harder if you're a werewolf.
Oh, I bet it would be. So I mean, yeah. So that's yeah. I think that's a good idea, and what you think that'll be available by the end of summer or something, maybe.
I'm not sure when that's going to be available because I just finished my rough draft, so that was mine. So this one, once I get the rough draft, it usually goes pretty fast because then I go through and I polish it up and I make some changes and I send it to my illustrator. So I'm hoping that this one is available sometime around June, and then I'm going to start working on the Apple Snitch, which I hope to have available in the fall because that's going to take place during the fall, and the werewolf one I'm going to start working on here pretty soon. So I'm hoping that will probably be Christmas by the time I get that out.
Okay, now change the topic a little bit here. You're a self-published, author. Got to brush my teeth. It's late in the day. You write your books and stuff, and you publish your own books. What advice can you give to other people that are? Because I've been getting a lot of people want to be on the show. They're in the process of writing books, but they don't know how to publish it or go that route. What's all involved for somebody that sits down and writes a book and maybe they can't get it published by a conventional publisher, or they want to publish it on their own anyway. So why don't you give us the listeners a little, tip on that?
Sure. I mean, it's the first thing I always encourage. There's the saying that everybody has a book in them, and I feel that that's true. If you want to write a book, I really feel that you should. And so everybody can write a book. Now, getting it published can be hard. I mean, I did have several agents look at this and read it over, and the children's market is really competitive. And what's most important is that you have what's called a platform. So that means, if you write well, that certainly won't be held against you. But what's more important is that you're able to sell your book. Because there's authors that we all know some authors that they're okay. They're not a bad writer, and they're you can find them in any bookstore or in the grocery store, and it's an okay read. But what's more important is that I have a voice. So one of the things that you need to be thinking of, even as you write this, is how are you going to sell it? So it's like, do you have? Because that actually the easy part, if you're a writer and you love to write, the easy part is writing the book. The hard part is selling. I actually spend almost as much time selling the book as I do writing.
Well, that is so true. Even, I've been out of radio for since I'd say early '80s, and then I'm retired, I'm old, and I decided, hey, I'm bored, and I only got two things in my life right now other than the family, is riding my Harley, and when I'm not riding my Harley, I'm bored. I don't like watching TV that much anymore, But when I was a young kid, at 10 years old, I got my first CB, and then at 12, I got my amateur license. Then I went into broadcasting when I was like 19. And, it's the same thing here. I've had some major networks want to put my show on their network, but they want it done their way. And everything is going to be done their way. I don't want to do that. This is more like I enjoy doing this. I like getting the message out to, the public. I don't need the money, but it's still hard to, I'm going on 6 months now broadcasting again, and it's hard. Just like I take it like with your, marketing your book, I have to market my my show.
You do, and you probably find that you need to do something a little bit every day. I mean, you need to have a plan. You need to work it. And there's lots of ways you can do it. Like, I have a bookstore, but I mean, I did last year, I did 23 events outside the bookstore, and of those, 13 of them were speaking engagements. So a lot of times I'll go and I'll talk about my book. I started presenting in schools, so I had to learn a different skill set than writing. And that's
yeah, like dealing with young kids.
Yeah. I mean, I love young kids, but it's like, writing and talking about writing are two different skill sets. Somebody can be a great writer, and they might not be, good at the speaking part. And I understand that. I'm actually a little bit of a natural introvert. So I'd much rather. There's a part of me that I'd much rather be writing my books at night, and I really enjoy that. But I also enjoy people reading my books, and sometimes to do that, you have to learn other skills. You have to put yourself out there.
Oh, yeah. It's just like what I do. It was really funny when I was in broadcasting, when I was young. I was behind a microphone. I felt very comfortable. And then all of a sudden TV started knocking, And it's funny. You put a camera on me and it's like, oh, my God, I can't say a word. I freak out. So I imagine it'd be kind of hard, if you're not used to it, going up and talking to the public or, even, how can I say it, not bringing yourself down, but yeah, you are. You're bringing yourself down to what, 8-year-old level, 7-year-old level, 6-year-old level, and you have to, mingle in with their age, and you have to learn how to communicate at their age level. So that would be kind of hard.
It is kind of hard. That's why I need to be on a certain spot to write these, because I've one of the things about writing a children's book is it's actually a lot harder. I've written for adults, and if I say like per 1,000 words, I spend a lot more on 1,000 words for a children's book than 1,000 words I would for like a book for an adult or a column that I write for an adult, because you're really writing for two audiences. Okay, you're writing for the audience, the child that will read it. So you want to write a book that a child will read, but you also have to write a book that an adult feels comfortable buying for the child.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, so it is, and it's one of those things where I have a lot of fun when I write these. So I have to be in a certain mind space. Like if I had a bad day, or when I was like working on the death of my father, I was pretty sad. So I really was having trouble writing it. And there's a part of me, like I kind of access the 7-year-old in me. So, I mean, I'm looking at both from an adult perspective, but I'm also looking at it like a 7-year-old would, and like, well, what's funny to a 7-year-old?
Yeah.
And that's the part I work in accessing when I write this.
Now, do you have any children?
I don't have any children. I have several nieces and nephews, and actually, that's another thing. When you write a book, you should have an audience in mind. So when I wrote my first children's book, Hobo Finds a Home, it came naturally out of the story that I told my nieces and nephews of how my cat come to live in me, because they would always say, well, Uncle Kevin, why do you have a cat? You grew up with dogs. And no, this was like kind of the story I made up of how he come to live in me. So when I went to write the book, it really kind of wrote itself. And that's when I wrote the first several raccoons. I had this idea, and I had this, it grew out of my jokes and out of my natural storytelling, because our cat Gypsy is at home. She's a very nice cat, but she's a little neurotic, as some cats are, and she stays at home. So when you go to the bookstore, I make the joke to my wife that she probably thinks we're out hunting, and we come, because when we come back and all we bring her is this dry dog food, this dry cat food, and she probably thinks you guys aren't very good hunters. And I go home and I'm like, Gypsy, what did you plan to do? What did you do all day when we were gone? Did you plan to take over the world again? And so that's another way of kind of how this grew out of like the stories of my cat and like raccoons that are in my garbage. I mean, I live in Wellsboro, and it's a small town, and I only live a mile from the bookstore right in town, but I still have to watch deer when I go home, that I don't run into a deer. And there's cats, there's like raccoons in my garbage, or possums in the cat food for our outside cat. So this all come together. So it's like parts of what I knew and the stories I would tell my nieces and nephews, and the children in the bookstore. I mean, this series came from my because we've been in the bookstore business for almost 12 years now. So a lot of this comes from my personal experience. People will bring their child into the store, and some children love to read, but as you mentioned, there's several children that don't, and you try to find something that they like, you try to match it with the child, and sometimes people say, like, oh, is there a book on that? And if there isn't, well, sometimes you need to write it, and that's what I did. Is I wrote a book for those children who don't like to read, but they love ninjas, and they love Bigfoot, and they love creatures that are scary, but not too scary.
Okay. Well, this really sounds good. Be prepared to get some orders probably. After the live show tomorrow, we'll be putting it up, your show up on, like iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker Radio, all the major apps as a podcast for the next 30 days. So, and I find after I do a show, about 2 days later to a week later, it gets so many hits of people listening. I got to warn you, I got a huge audience in the UK and Australia and Germany, believe it or not.
Oh, great. And the good news is my books are available in overseas. The only continent that the Ninja Raccoons aren't available is Antarctica. And so if you'll have to bring them in if you go to Antarctica. But I've actually had some sales in the UK. They're kind of they're really good for British humor. I grew